If you have ever flipped on your kitchen light late at night and seen something dark and fast disappear under the stove, I need you to pay close attention to the next few minutes, because that single moment probably wasn't an isolated event. It was a warning. Cockroaches don't wander into homes by accident, and they don't stick around out of curiosity. They show up because somewhere in your house, right now, you are unknowingly offering them exactly what they need to survive and multiply. A crumb under the toaster, a damp corner behind the washing machine, a gap under a door you've walked past 1,000 times without a second thought. One roach sighting rarely means one roach. It usually means a colony is already established somewhere out of sight, and by the time you're seeing them in daylight, the population behind your walls may be significant. In the next several minutes, I'm going to walk you through 10 common things inside an ordinary home that quietly attract cockroaches, why each one works so well for them, and exactly what you can do today to remove that appeal before a few unwanted visitors becomes a full-blown infestation. Stick with me, because one of these attractants is almost never on people's radar, and it's often what keeps an infestation alive long after people think they've solved it. Let's start with something that happens in nearly every home at some point. Dishes left in the sink overnight. It feels harmless. You're tired. You'll deal with it in the morning. But to a cockroach, a sink full of dirty dishes is an all-night buffet. Food residue, grease films, and standing water in the basin give them everything they need in one convenient location. And cockroaches are primarily nocturnal foragers, meaning the hours you're asleep are exactly when they're most active. They avoid light and movement instinctively, which is part of why people so rarely see them during the day, even when a colony is thriving nearby. The fix here is simple, but has to be consistent. Wash dishes before bed, or at minimum, rinse them thoroughly and let them soak in clean water rather than leaving food residue exposed on the surface overnight. It takes 5 extra minutes and removes one of the easiest food sources in the entire house. Food crumbs and spills are the next major draw, and this one goes far beyond the kitchen table. Crumbs behind the toaster, sauce that splatters on the stovetop and dries, or cereal that scatters under a high chair all add up to a steady food supply a cockroach can access night after night. Cockroaches can survive on remarkably small amounts of food, which means even a seemingly clean kitchen can be sustaining a hidden population if crumbs accumulate in places you don't regularly clean, like under appliances or behind the refrigerator. The solution isn't just wiping the counters, it's expanding your cleaning routine to include pulling out appliances every couple of weeks and vacuuming those forgotten edges. A shop vacuum with a narrow attachment works well for tight gaps a broom can't reach. Closely related is the way we store food in general. Unsealed containers, open cereal boxes folded over instead of clipped shut, bread left in its original bag on the counter. Cockroaches have flattened, flexible bodies specifically built to squeeze through impossibly small openings, so a paper bag or a loosely closed box isn't a barrier to them at all. It's an invitation. Switching to airtight containers made of glass or heavy plastic for pantry staples like flour, cereal, rice, and sugar removes one of their most reliable food sources almost entirely. And it has the added benefit of keeping your food fresher longer too. Before we get to the next attractant, and trust me, some of these are going to surprise you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of this series on keeping pests out of your home for good. And I'd genuinely like to know, have you ever spotted a cockroach in your own house? And if so, where was it? Drop it in the comments below. You might be surprised how many other viewers have dealt with the exact same thing in the exact same spot. Alright, let's keep going, because the next one is happening in more homes than people realize. Pet owners often overlook one of the biggest attractants in their home: pet food left out for hours at a time. Dry kibble might seem low risk, but it still carries enough residual moisture and odor to draw roaches in overnight, and wet food is even more appealing to them. If you have a dog or cat, try feeding them on a schedule rather than leaving food out constantly, and pick up the bowl once they're done eating. If you free feed for practical reasons, at least move the bowl and clean underneath it regularly, since kibble crumbs scatter more than people expect. Moisture might be the single biggest factor in all of this, and it's where leaking pipes come in. Cockroaches need water more urgently than food, and a slow drip under the kitchen sink or a small leak around a bathroom pipe can sustain an entire colony indefinitely. This is also why roaches are so commonly found in bathrooms and kitchens specifically. Those are the rooms with the most consistent access to water. Discoloration under a cabinet, a musty smell, or soft spots on a cabinet floor often signal a slow leak that's been feeding more than just water damage. Getting a plumber to fix even minor leaks promptly and wiping down damp areas under sinks regularly removes a resource that's honestly harder for them to replace than food. Standing water deserves its own mention separately from leaks because it shows up in places people don't think to check. A clogged drain that holds water, a pet's water bowl that's rarely refreshed, condensation trays under air conditioning units, even a damp sponge sitting in the sink. Cockroaches are drawn to these sources with the same urgency they show toward leaks, since both provide the hydration they need to survive, especially in warmer months. Emptying and drying these areas regularly and making sure drains flow freely instead of holding pooled water closes off another avenue they rely on. This next one is the one I mentioned earlier, the attractant most homeowners never think to check: garbage bins. It seems obvious on the surface, but people underestimate how much a garbage can contributes, even when it's covered. Food residue lining the inside of the can, juice from packaging that leaks to the bottom, and the general odor that builds up between bag changes all create a magnet effect, especially if the bin sits in a warm, enclosed space like under a sink or in a closed pantry. Using a bin with a tightly fitting lid, rinsing it out periodically rather than just replacing the bag, and taking trash out more frequently in warmer months all reduce how attractive that bin becomes as a food and shelter source. It's also worth checking the ground underneath outdoor bins, since spilled residue there can draw roaches toward your foundation from the outside in. Cardboard boxes and general household clutter play a different but equally important role. Roaches aren't just looking for food and water. They're also looking for shelter, somewhere dark, tight, and undisturbed where they can hide during the day and lay eggs safely. Cardboard is particularly appealing because it's made from cellulose, which some species can actually digest, and the layered structure gives them narrow crevices that mimic their natural habitat. This is why pest professionals often recommend switching from cardboard boxes to plastic storage bins in basements, garages, and closets, especially for long-term storage. Reducing clutter in general, and avoiding stacks of newspapers or moving boxes sitting around for months, removes hiding spots that let a small population grow undisturbed. This next attractant surprises a lot of people because it has nothing to do with food or water at all. The small cracks and gaps that give cockroaches a way in to begin with. Cracks around baseboards, gaps where pipes enter through walls, small tears in door sweeps, and spaces around window frames are all potential entry points. Because of how flexible their exoskeletons are, cockroaches can fit through openings as thin as a coin's edge, which means even minor gaps that look insignificant to us are wide open doors to them. Plenty of infestations actually start outside the house, in a woodpile, a drain line, or a neighboring unit, with the roaches simply following a scent trail in through one of these gaps. Walking your home's perimeter with a flashlight in the evening and sealing visible gaps with caulk or weather stripping is one of the most underrated steps in pest prevention because it addresses the entry problem directly rather than just cleaning up after they've already arrived. Utility line entry points are worth extra attention, since those gaps tend to be larger than they look at first glance. Finally, let's talk about warm appliances, because this is another attractant almost nobody thinks to check, and it's often the reason an infestation persists even after a home gets cleaner. Refrigerators, ovens, dishwashers, and microwaves all generate warmth, and that warmth radiates into the small, dark spaces underneath and behind them. Cockroaches are drawn to consistent warmth because it supports faster digestion and reproduction, and the motors and compressors in these appliances create exactly that kind of stable microclimate. This is why pulling out the refrigerator every few months to clean behind and underneath it matters so much, along with checking behind the oven and under the dishwasher. These spots combine three things roaches want at once: warmth, darkness, and proximity to food residue, which makes them some of the most productive hiding spots in the entire house. The tight gap between an appliance housing and the wall behind it adds one more advantage, since it gives them the snug, body-hugging space they instinctively prefer over open floor area. It's worth pausing here to address a couple of common myths, because misunderstanding cockroach behavior often leads people to relax too soon or panic unnecessarily. One popular myth is that only dirty homes get roaches. In reality, even meticulously clean houses can develop problems if there's a consistent water source or an entry point nearby, since roaches will travel from neighboring units or outdoor harborage areas in search of resources. Another myth is that seeing a cockroach during the day means the problem is small. Since they're nocturnal and light-averse by nature, daytime sightings often indicate the opposite, that the population has grown large enough to push individuals out of overcrowded hiding spots. Cockroaches also reproduce remarkably quickly, with a single female capable of producing dozens of offspring from just one egg case, which is why early warning signs matter so much. Those signs include a musty, oily odor, small dark droppings resembling coffee grounds along baseboards, and small brown egg cases tucked into corners or behind appliances. The most effective approach to cockroach prevention isn't relying on a single spray or a one-time treatment. It's addressing food, water, shelter, and entry points together and maintaining that effort consistently over time. A spray might kill the roaches you can see, but if a leaking pipe, an open food source, and an unsealed gap are all still in place, new individuals will simply move in to take advantage of the same conditions. Consistency is what breaks the cycle. A kitchen wiped down nightly, leaks fixed quickly instead of postponed, clutter kept to a minimum, and gaps sealed before they become entry points. None of these steps are complicated on their own, but doing them together, and doing them regularly, is what separates homes that never see a roach problem from homes that fight the same infestation year after year. If you've made it this far, take a walk through your own home tonight with everything we just covered in mind. Check under the sink, pull the fridge out a few inches, take a look at your pantry containers, and see how many of these 10 attractants might be quietly present in your own space. If this helped you look at your home a little differently, do me a favor and hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments which of these attractants did you discover in your own home today. I'll see you in the next one.